wasn't the clue. Here today was...
Oh, Will Sloan. Are you doing that because I have a cold this week?
Yes, I am. I wanted to put ourselves on equal playing field.
I'm Batman.
Oh, finally you can do your Batman voice,
Yeah,
and it sounds really realistic.
Yeah.
Let me close my eyes and you introduce the episode in your Batman voice.
I can't. I'm sorry, I can't riff.
You can't riff?
Yeah.
Is it your cold?
I think it has to be.
It's just hurting your riffing opportunities.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So this week...
Justin's going to get sick this week, by the way.
I am absolutely going to get sick.
I'm sorry.
We're going to be talking about someone that Will brought to the table, and it's...
Sofia Coppola.
Sofia Coppola. I feel very tired today.
And I'm sick, so this is going to be a very low-energy podcast. We just recorded our premium episode about Batman and Robin, so I feel like that took all the energy that I have.
That's right. So that's kind of perfect for talking about this filmmaker, who's not a big, high-energy one.
Yeah, who's a little bit boring, you might say. No, I don't think that.
No, she takes her time with her films. Most famously, The Virgin Suicides, Lost in Translation, nominated for multiple Academy Awards, Marie Antoinette, The Bling Ring, Somewhere, and...
A Very Murray Christmas on Netflix.
I forgot about that.
She directed that.
And they recently released The Beguiled.
Yes.
I like a filmmaker that I can name all their films in one go. Makes me feel good.
So who is Sofia Coppola? Who's her father?
Her father is Francis Ford Coppola, director of Jack and
and Tetro.
And Tetro, that's right. And she's famous for appearing in The Godfather 3.
Oh, God. She grew up on the set of Apocalypse Now. Isn't that her as a baby in the first Godfather?
It is, and she also appears as an immigrant in Godfather 2. And, while she acts in The Godfather 3, she was a last-minute replacement for Winona Ryder, who dropped out. Her role was critically panned across the board, and she never really acted again.
Yeah, too bad.
But you're a big fan of Godfather 3?
No, it's terrible.
But she did get to make The Virgin Suicides, a film that I missed out when it came to video. Like, it's not one that I saw until we decided to watch it for this episode.
Really? I see it on your shelf over there.
Well, that is my partner's copy, Emily.
I guess she also had a copy of The Cat's Meow as well, so she's a big Kirsten Dunst fan.
That is absolutely the case.
Oh, well. So one reason why I was kind of interested in talking about Sofia Coppola is because, on the one hand, I guess she's the most famous female filmmaker. I mean, maybe not. You could say Catherine Bigelow. But, like, who's the one who, when you say name a female filmmaker... the one who is almost like this...
that everybody knows.
Symbolic figurehead, and someone whose films are very feminine as well. Mm-hmm. It's Sofia Coppola, and because of that...
So it's two white guys here to talk about her.
Yeah, just two guys. I'm gonna explain...
why she's a female filmmaker and what it represents.
But I also sense that there's been an almost continual backlash ever since Lost in Translation to her. And I feel like a lot of that, some of it's fair, some of it's unfair, but a lot of it has to do with this big place that she holds in the popular imagination. So there's been a lot of talk during the release of The Beguiled about how, she's whitewashing the Civil War or Reconstruction era South. And this, I think, has less to do with the actual movie than it does the fact that she's a female filmmaker, and therefore people think she bears certain responsibilities, which I think is unfair. Mm-hmm. And also, I think a lot of people have a sense of frustration in her because she is maybe the most famous female filmmaker, but she's a Coppola. She's a child of privilege, and she makes films about children of privilege. Mm-hmm.
Which is right on my hit list, because I hate movies about that kind of stuff.
And she has not expressed a lot of interest in, exploring outside that privilege. And I think that's fine. That's perfectly, within her right as an artist. But people, I think, get frustrated about it because she has come to represent something more than herself.
That you think that was Lost in Translation and how big that was, it automatically cemented her as the female filmmaker. And let's be honest, she's never really picked up that mantle since then.
Well, I mean, she's never had as big a hit as Lost in Translation. She's always been kind of a niche figure, even though she has... continued to be one of the few female filmmakers that most people can name.
So let's talk about Lost in Translation, the movie that everybody had to see because it featured a dramatic, sad, yet funny and touching performance from Bill Murray.
Yes.
And everybody loves Bill Murray.
Did you see this at the time?
Yes, I did. I saw it when it came out on DVD because I lived in a small town that had no cinemas.
Yeah, I saw it on DVD too. And I watched it this week for the first time, probably since I was in high school. And I gotta say, I really liked it still. And I did not expect to still like it.
Didn't do much for me.
Really? Okay,
Yep.
well, let's talk about this. So the plot of the movie is a very Sofia Coppola-like woman played by Scarlett Johansson. She's visiting Japan with her husband, a very Spike Jonze-like figure played by Giovanni Ribisi.
For people that don't know, Sophia and Spike dated for a long time. She appears in one of his music videos. Oh, they were married?
Yes. And I've also heard the rumor that the character in Her, played by Rooney Mara, is based on Sofia Coppola.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So, payback. It's like their Lemonade. So they're
ironic because they shot in the same house for the Beguiled that the Lemonade video shot in.
Oh, okay. Well.
And there's a photo of a bunch of white women on the throne that Beyonce is sitting in.
Oh yeah, I read that. So her husband in the movie is in town, in Japan, in Tokyo, shooting a band. Also in Tokyo is a movie star played by Bill Murray, who's in town shooting a whiskey commercial. And they're kind of stuck at this hotel, strangers in a strange land. Bill Murray is escaping his wife for the week, who's in America, and it seems they have a strained marriage. Also a strained marriage between Scarlett Johansson and Giovanni Ribisi. So Johansson and Bill Murray hang out, having an almost but not quite affair over the course of the week.
Yeah, they just kind of go around Japan looking how crazy and wild and different it is.
Okay, so now we're going to get to the racism part. Okay, yeah, let's hear about the racism.
It's almost impossible to read about Lost in Translation anywhere without people talking about racist. And is it? Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, can we put a little bit of nuance here? Because I think the most racist scene is probably the lip my stocking scene, where they send that, I guess, a prostitute up to Bill Murray's room, and she keeps saying, lip my stocking, lip my stocking. And there were a lot of jokes in the movie about L's and R's being switched around. So, I mean, that's a little hard to defend. On the other hand, the talk show that Bill Murray goes on this movie, there are talk shows like that in Japan.
Yeah, there are. I don't think that's the issue that I had. The one that really threw me for a loop is that there is almost no other characters in the film in Japan are looked at in any other lens than just others. Okay, that are supposed to be like, ooh, look at this different lives that all these people have.
But in fairness, I mean...
That's what the movie's about.
Well, that's the experience that these two characters would have in Japan.
Yes.
And it's probably the experience that I and you would have in Japan if we
Maybe
visited.
a little bit.
Yeah. I hate to speak for you, but...
I've never left North America.
I think you perhaps would be a little shocked if you were, flipping channels on Japanese TV and saw, a weird talk show.
A little bit, I guess. But I found it a little bit sobering, especially that all of these instances that they're witnessing is either it's supposed to be like an awe or we're like laughing at them.
I think there are maybe a few too many of the laughing parts.
Yeah.
Like maybe the part where Bill Murray's at the hospital and he's talking to this woman who, is kind of like a goofy looking woman.
Which is, it's Bill Murray's shtick, but when it's directed toward an entire country, that's when over and over again.
Yeah, I get that. I am glad though that the movie doesn't shoehorn in, kind of this an extra character who's like the good Japanese person.
I mean, there's no Japanese characters in the movie.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not, it would be tokenism if you just put in one who like...
Yeah, so put in 2 or 3.
Okay, fine. Why am I even arguing this?
But this is not the reason that you like the movie.
Yeah.
You buy the relationship between Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson.
I do, because it's a relationship that can only exist, I think, in the context of the story that this movie's presenting. These are
two white people over a black of Asian faces.
2 white people. They're just so tired of seeing others everywhere, and they think the white race cannot be kept down. Oh, no. No, I mean, they're 2 people who, aside from being white, have nothing in common. Really, they're kind of connected only out of loneliness. There was a lot of debate at the time, and maybe there is still some debate about, like, what does Bill Murray whisper into her ear at the end of the movie?
Didn't someone blow up the audio at the end, and it's just like...
and it turns out that it was, like, just totally mundane stuff. Because a lot of people thought, well, maybe he said his phone number to her or something like that, but...
Or, like, I used you to make myself feel better.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's no way this relationship could continue outside the context of this.
I mean, it's so benign.
And I think there's quite a bit of question as to what exactly their feelings are towards each other. In a movie like In the Mood for Love, I don't think there's a lot of doubt that the characters are in love. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, I think there is doubt.
Yeah, because what brings them together is, like we discussed, the fact that they have nothing else to anchor them in this world where everything is foreign.
Yeah.
And she knows who he is because he's a star. Mm. So that's an extra bit with each other.
The other thing I like about the movie is the way that it kind of captures and makes beautiful the experience of being in a hotel room in a foreign country. There are scenes where you just hear the kind of ambient noise of the traffic. A lot of Sofia Coppola's movies, I think, are maybe a little hard to talk about because they're so surface level in a way.
Well, they're always about people in transition, right? Yeah. And she never goes for the big emotional beats, whether it be Marie Antoinette or even like Somewhere.
Yeah.
It's all about like these emotions that are just bubbling under the surface and nobody's actually really acting upon them.
But I think Sofia Coppola is somebody who loves surfaces. She's somebody who loves the way things look and sound, and she likes capturing that. So a lot of the pleasure of her movies, if you find them pleasurable, comes in sharing her pleasure at this kind of sensual beauty.
Well, I think her films are undeniably visually opulent and fun to look at.
Yeah.
I just wish more was going on.
Okay. You're kind of Joe Popcorn at the multiplex.
I'm more of like a Michael Bay person. You know, give me the explosions and the crazy camera moves. But looking at a movie like The Virgin Suicides would have probably been something that I loved if I had seen it when it had come out at the time. It's playing with all those stylistic ticks that a first filmmaker does, whether it be like weird flashbacks or documentary interviews interspersed through the film in which...
Who plays old Josh Hartnett?
Michael Paré.
Yeah, from No Deposit.
And Streets of Fire. This film also stinks of a first production that it's the daughter of someone famous making, because it's peppered with like really famous actors doing nothing in their roles, like Danny DeVito playing a psychiatrist for a few scenes.
I was pretty happy to see James Woods and Kathleen Turner as the parents.
James Woods in not crazy mode.
Yeah. James Woods seems to have gone off the deep end. Like, it was weird seeing him just as kind of like a schlubby dad.
Like a normal guy, not being like, the conspiracy's going on, they're trying to keep me down.
Yeah. I have trouble watching Kathleen Turner in a movie like this without thinking of Serial Mom.
Great movie, though.
Yeah, great film. I liked this movie, though.
I really like this movie, yeah. It's a kind of, light and fluffy stuff with those really deep kind of emotions at the end just to make it feel real. Emily, my partner who owns the movie, talked about how the movie really impacted her when she was a teenager and had a chance to see it, and that it did reflect how she felt as well. And like there's a line at the end that, it was a house so full of love, how could this have happened?
Yeah. I think the movie does a really good job capturing the kind of casual cruelty of teenagers. The 4 or is it 5 siblings in the movie? 4 siblings, then one of them kills herself early on. They're regarded by all the boys in the neighborhood as this kind of like weird, freaky thing. They're dehumanized in a way.
Yeah, they view it at a distance, right? Like, and the way that the film is narrated as well, they talk about at one point seeing the girls' diaries and understanding them, but at the same time, it's also still putting them on a kind of pedestal. They're not a person, really.
There's a strong like virgin horror complex in the way that they treat these teenagers. Like, sex when kids are 13 or 14 is such a novelty. It's so mysterious, and
it means everything.
Yeah, it means everything. And like in this movie, when Josh Hartnett has sex with Kirsten Dunst, all the mystery of her is totally disappears, and he has no interest in her anymore. And the kids are kind of so fascinated by the dichotomy between the fact that these girls look so pure, and then at night Kirsten Dunst is like hooking up with guys on the roof.
Mm-hmm. I've read online as well that there's like a huge pushback against the film as just trivial, superficial nothing, especially that it obviously feels that this was very popular for teens at the time, and now looking back on it, it's lost some of its luster.
I think that probably has a lot to do with the fact that, it was a movie, it's like kids who were so into Donnie Darko or something, and then they turn their back on it. It's like people can't really view it objectively.
Yeah,
because
it represents so much of what being a teenager used to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I think I saw in high school and meant nothing to me, and now
You're I throw the Boondock Saints back on.
And I had totally forgotten it, and then I watched it now, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's good.
I think it really does accurately capture something about the way that boys and girls interact at that age.
Now, Marie Antoinette, big film, played at Cannes, booed famously.
Well, it's hard for directors after they have the big breakthrough movie, isn't it?
Especially when they're tackling French history and it's playing in France, directed by an American female filmmaker, which those critics probably did not want to see.
No, they're like, oh, ha ha ha, a female filmmaker.
We only have room for one, Agnes Varda. So, Marie Antoinette. Fan? No? Yes?
I'm mixed on it.
Yeah, me too.
I see what it's trying to do, and I
just don't, it's not that fun.
I respect what it's trying to do. I hear it explained to me that it's trying to make Marie Antoinette's experience more accessible to us by using, more modern pop music.
There's a few inserts of modern culture, like she has Converse sneakers on the ground and stuff like that.
And I respect that. I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, you tell me that and I go, yeah, sounds like a good idea.
And perhaps if you are a daughter of Francis Ford Coppola...
and you're rich, and you know this kind of emptiness that comes with opulence.
And it's like, you, like Marie Antoinette, have spent so much of your life being kind of like in the shadow of more famous men. Then I can definitely get why this movie.
But as we're two dudes and we get everything we want,
we just like watching sports on TV and eating chicken wings.
I was surprised watching Marie Antoinette this time. I'd never seen it. That it was so cold in its presentation. After seeing Virgin Suicides, I expected something a little bit more playful, and it is kind of very formalist in the way that it presents its stuff, almost as if it wants to let you know, all right, like, I'm doing this way, but I still know how serious it is.
Right. So how about Somewhere? Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere is probably my least favorite of her films.
Now, Somewhere is the rich person feeling empty in life movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you took Lost in Translation but took Bill Murray out of it, so all you had was
Stephen Dorff?
Yeah.
The Boondock Saint himself?
And in fact, watching Lost in Translation this week...
no, Stephen Dorff is not a Boondock Saint.
What? He was in Cecil B. Demented.
That's right, and he was also the villain in Blade.
And what was the Uwe Boll movie he was in? Alone in the Dark.
Yes, that's right. Christian Slater and Stephen Dorff. All the stars are gone from the sky.
All of Jack Nicholson's children... converged in Alone in the Dark.
But yeah, Somewhere, I saw an interview with Sofia where she said that she was inspired by the cinema of Chantal Ackerman, and you're like, oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's certainly slow.
Yes.
And I don't like the milieu that it's set in.
Which is grungy and kind of stripped down LA.
Well, it's like a celebrity who's being kind of like carted from one interview to another in hotel rooms, and he's got these two strippers who were in his room at one point, and
twice.
Right, and you're kind of in there thinking, yes, this is an empty life, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's tough to find happiness in this
when you're so famous and so rich. But he has his daughter, and
I heard that Kevin Smith's wife loves this movie.
Is that so?
And that she was moved to tears while watching it.
Oh, good for her.
But that shows.
Never mention Kevin Smith on my podcast again.
I said his wife.
Okay.
Jen. Is that her name?
Let's move on.
Yeah, to do a deeper discussion into Somewhere. No, we're not going to do that.
Well, what I'll say is, as I was watching Lost in Translation, it made me realize that I think what her movies have been missing is that Bill Murray spark.
Yeah, a little bit of charm.
A little bit of, like, just live wire energy in them. They've all been very polite since then.
Which brings us to the Bling Ring, which is, again, very polite and kind of presenting things how they are. I don't know why I had this idea in my mind that it was going to be like a crazy, teens in the modern era film.
Well, because you hear the premise and you think it is.
You hear the sleigh bell song that's over the opening credits, which is like this in-your-face, distorted rock music.
Now, this movie was based on a true story of a gang of teenagers who realized, they looked on the internet to see when certain celebrities like Paris Hilton or whoever would be out of town. They realized most of them didn't bother to lock their doors. So they went into their houses and tried on their clothes and stole some stuff.
Yep, and that's it.
And the problem is these characters really are shallow. Once you hear what they've done and their explanations for why they've done it, there's not a lot else there. And when you take the insights that the movie offers, like the fact that we live in a fame-obsessed culture, well, stop the presses, right?
Yeah, I get it.
The movie is very visually beautiful, but I also hate this milieu.
Oh, yes. I mean,
I hate these people.
It's not only rich people, it's rich kids.
Yeah, rich kids, rich entitled kids. I like that it's a very unsentimental film. There's not a lot of editorializing.
No.
I mean, I was going to say that Coppola doesn't tell you what to think, but I mean, the very fact that she's presenting these people kind of tells you what to think, right? Mm-hmm.
Do you think that she feels more sympathy for these kids than an audience of blue-collar Joes like myself would get out of it?
Probably, but I mean, I think she also sees them for what they are.
Yeah, just empty frauds. I mean, everybody does.
Yeah. So they're not very pleasant people to spend 90 minutes with.
I think the most fun piece of information was that Sofia Coppola's film was beaten by a Lifetime movie also called The Bling Ring. To the screen.
Yeah.
I wonder if that one is also cold and distant in its treatment of its subjects.
Well, which one are we still talking about on a podcast today?
The Lifetime Network one, obviously.
So, have you been out to see The Beguiled yet?
I did. And I got a chance to see it. And before I went, I saw the Don Siegel original, which I had never seen. Loved it. For people that don't know, it's about a Yankee soldier in the Don Siegel version, played by Clint Eastwood, whose leg is injured. He's taken in by a house of women in the South, where they each lust after him while he emotionally exploits them until things blow up in his face, Misery style.
And this is during the Civil War as well.
Yes, it's in the middle of the Civil War. The women have a black slave in the film.
In the Don Siegel film.
In the Don Siegel version, yes.
Famously, they don't have a black slave in the Sofia Coppola one because she felt that race was too big an issue for her to deal with fairly in the context of this movie. Which
it's interesting, though, but
has led to a raft of think pieces about how
in the Don Siegel version, the African-American character is presented very positively. She has a drive for herself. She gets her own voiceover narration at some points, which is absent in the Sofia version. Sofia
Coppola was forced this week to deliver a statement to IndieWire, which is really the lowest circle of hell, where in response,
Top 10 podcasts, Support Cinema Club.
In response to some of her critics, and she said, "I wanted to tell the story of the isolation of these women, cut off from the world and in denial of a changing world. My intentions in choosing to make a film in this world were not to celebrate a way of life whose time was over, but rather to explore the high cost of denial and repression." I think it's a sorry state when she has to come out and make a statement like that when it's so fucking obvious when you see the movie.
Yeah, it's like Kevin Smith having to apologize for Mallrats, right?
Stop talking about Kevin Smith. I don't want people to get the wrong impression about our podcast.
No, we're Kevin Smith obsessed?
We're talking about classy filmmakers like Sofia Coppola.
Oh, not trash filmmakers like Kevin Smith's?
So Sofia Coppola's version, compared to the more live wire kind of crazy, psychologically weird,
sweaty, kind of. The Don Siegel version is a horror film.
Yeah,
and I think that Clint Eastwood's role works perfectly because he is Clint Eastwood. In the Don Siegel version, Eastwood is portrayed as a liar and a lout. He says stuff like, "Oh, I don't carry a gun. I'm a pacifist," during the battle. While he's saying this, they cut to footage of him sniping unarmed men from a tree.
Yeah.
Or like, "I want to keep property the way it is." And they cut to him burning down stuff as he's emotionally manipulating all these women. While in the Coppola version, it's just Colin Farrell is just a dude.
He's a cipher, frankly. Yeah. And I think, well, the movie's much more about the women. Coppola's one is more about the women than Don Siegel's version, which is very much about the man and how the women are kind of affecting him and how he's affecting them. Mm-hmm. I think it's a problem that Colin Farrell is so uncharismatic.
And bland. Yeah, he's nothing. It's weird because watching the Siegel version, Clint Eastwood is from the North, right? And they're from the South. In the Sofia Coppola version, Colin Farrell's from the North, but he's also from Dublin, so he is a literal other in their midst. Like, he doesn't really represent anything.
Yeah, so I don't think that works. I mean, it works to the extent that... I mean, it's hard not to make the story work when you take a house full of, Southern Confederate women and put a man in it and see how it unravels. That's kind of an intrinsically interesting idea.
But I found it so cold in its portrayal... And that her decision to also set it in the South again, I think it would have been interesting if the story had been put anywhere else than telling the same story again, hitting all the same beats too.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I liked the movie a little more than you did. Mm-hmm. I thought it was stunningly beautiful.
There's no doubt in my mind that it was beautiful,
and I like the way that it's beautiful, but it makes this house look like a tomb.
that you can't escape from. Yeah, they're just kind of tiptoeing from room to room waiting to die because there's nothing else going on.
So if that's the central idea of Coppola's interpretation of this story, then that's interesting, I think, and it's worth exploring. And I'm glad I spent a little time there, even though I wish the movie were a little more exciting.
Yes. I mean, she's not interested in squeezing any suspense out of the situation.
Yeah.
There's a very violent act that happens in the film that even in her version is like, okay, yeah, that's it.
This is the thing, like, ever since Lost in Translation, I've kind of had this feeling watching her movies where within 20 minutes I get what the idea is, and then I'm stuck watching it for another hour and a half.
But that's obviously what she's passionate about, and those are the kind of movies that she's going to make. Like, there's no doubt that she's an auteur. Like, that she's going to do it over and over and over again. And it's good that she gets to keep making these things.
You know, all of her movies offer something for me, and I'm happy to continue seeing them. I just wish I liked them a little more.
Yeah, I wish I did too. But, like, saying stuff like, you know, she's a daughter of a famous filmmaker, she's making these movies, and she's rich. That's what all the movies are about. It's almost like she's going, yes, I know who I am. I'm going to make movies about this thing. I'm not going to try to hide it.
Yeah.
Well, we have some mail, Will.
Oh, good.
I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice.
I hope they're short letters so I can go back to bed.
They are very long. Greetings, important cinema clubbers. I've been binging your show at work for the last 3 weeks, and I am really enjoying what I've heard so far. You guys strike a great balance of entertaining and informative, and the witty conversational style is fun and engaging. Keep it up.
Thank you.
So my favorite episodes have been your looks at Orson Welles, Fritz Lang, and David Lynch, some of my favorite filmmakers, and I'd really dig your opinions on P.T. Anderson, Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, given Will's man love for Michael Keaton, and the pre-Lord of the Ring work of Peter Jackson. Oh, I love to talk about that.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'd also love to see you guys discuss acting oeuvres like those of Daniel Day-Lewis, Marion Cotillard, especially her pre-Oscar work. I mean, how much fun would it be to talk about her truth or beliefs?
Yeah. I don't care that much about Marion Cotillard, but I definitely would like to hear more of what she has to say about 9/11.
Peter Lorre and or Tilda Swinton.
Hey, Peter Lorre, that'd be fun.
Man, that would be fun.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned Jonathan Rosenbaum a lot on your show. He's one of my favorite film critics as well. I got the opportunity to accost him a few years ago, and he seemed like a really nice guy. Would you guys ever consider devoting an episode to him like you did for Pauline Kael?
That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yes, we could read his biography, Moving Places, and discuss
Well, I don't know if I want to do that.
That is the one book. If you guys listening want to get into Jonathan Rosenbaum, who I heavily recommend, do not pick up his book Moving Places. It is a biography he wrote that was for him and him alone.
I didn't make it past the first chapter, but hey,
his films, Essential Cinema, essential.
Movies as Politics is great. Placing Movies is very good. Mm-hmm. You know.
He's a great critic, and you can read what DVDs he's bought every month in CinemaScope. The article I flip to first every time. And this person goes, though I've never gotten to your Criterion episode yet, I'm going to assume you love them as much as I do. Are you planning on taking advantage of the Barnes & Noble's 50% off Criterion sale this month? If so, what discs are you planning to pick up? All right, letter writer, do you work for Criterion?
Oh, this is what it is, right? Buzz marketing?
Thanks for being such a great and engaging podcast, and for keeping my brain engaged at work. Stephen Foxworthy.
Well, thank you very much. I don't generally patronize the Barnes & Noble sale because I live in Canada, and by the time you put the shipping and handling costs and the exchange rate, it's not that great a value.
I am terribly poor and can't even imagine ordering anything off the internet, so I will not be participating in that sale.
Yes. I'm sorry, Criterion salesman who claims that you're a listener, but no, seriously, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your letter.
And Jonathan Rosenbaum episode? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I really like him, and I feel like we've probably talked about him enough that if you edited all those clips together, it would make its own episode.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have a second letter, Will.
Okay. What do you want me to say?
Please let me sleep, Will. Hey, Will and Justin. The reach of your podcast have reached the recesses of the Tallahassee bogs. You guys know you're doing great work, so I'll keep the praise brief. I have really come with a few questions. Having listened to basically all of your episodes at this point, like most listeners, I reached a point where I heard you discuss a movie that I really want to watch but I am unable to find a physical copy of. Or maybe I can find a physical copy of certain movies, but I'm financially unable to drop decent sums of money on every movie I want to watch. The discussion of downloading movies in this day and age is one I thought I had grown tired of. I've never illegally downloaded a movie before, but getting deeper and deeper into cinephilia, I am reaching a point that if I ever want to see certain movies, it looks like I would have to download them. Like I mentioned, I live in Florida, so seeing these things in a theater is out of the question. I want to support filmmakers I love like Johnny To, but I'm too poor to buy all of his movies. I hate the idea of people thinking that they deserve to see all the movies in the world for free. I don't think that is right, but I sometimes find myself thinking a movie is meant to be seen. I'm basically wondering what you guys think about this issue. Is downloading movies always wrong? When is it okay, if ever? What are other ways of seeing things? Do you illegally download movies? Do you think this is a problem?
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
First, I have to say, because I think you're legally forced to answer this question, are you a police officer?
Yes.
So, this is a very thorny question, right? Yeah. Number one, downloading movies is taking money out of people's pockets. It is. Yeah. And saying any differently is you're
I've
fooling
heard all
yourself.
sorts of justifications for it.
And you're fooling yourself. Yeah. From a personal standpoint, I made a movie called Teddy Bomb. It took a long time to come out. I made a Blu-ray, was ready to release it, and a week before it came out, someone messaged me and went, "Hey, did you know your movie's online on YouTube?" And I went, "What?" And I checked, it had like 8,000 hits or something like that. And I emailed the guy. Guess what? There's nothing I can do about it. And since then, it's been uploaded to different accounts and stuff like that, and it's up there.
Wow, so now you know where to see Teddy Bomb.
And has it hurt the money that I've received? Absolutely. The version online looks like shit, and I sold almost no Blu-rays, like none. And I have no doubt that it's because it's online. Like, people who would have bought like a Vimeo link or gotten a Blu-ray to see the movie have not done it because they saw a shitty link online. That's actually an old version that I had sent to a distributor to take a look at.
Well, so I know some people who are listening have probably checked it out, and the way you can make things right is to throw Justin $20.
Yes, teddybomb.com, you can buy it there. So yeah, it does affect people. Like, it does. And it is also the reality that we're living with now. Like, yeah. It's not going away.
Yeah.
Like, the movies will be available out there. My suggestion is, put your money where your mouth is, and like, if you want to go see a movie, go and see it. Especially indie films, which are the ones that are the biggest chances to take. So most people usually like either download them or find them some other way, which completely takes the money out of the pockets of the filmmakers making it, and those people cannot make movies anymore.
My policy is generally that if the movie is available and is readily available, then I pay for it.
Yeah.
But if it's like a very obscure, out of print thing,
well, I watch Alone in the T-Shirt Zone this week, and that film is not available on DVD. It's nowhere. I watch it on YouTube when it's up there.
Yeah.
So, like, did I feel any qualms about that? No, I obviously I didn't.
Yeah.
It's just, you gotta be just conscious of what you're doing. And I feel that, you know, when people try to justify themselves, like, saying stuff, don't artists just want their movies to be watched?
They want to be able to
live and eat.
Get money so they can make the next movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand when people... And not saying this is right, that they're like, oh, I'm sticking it to the big old Hollywood guy. But the thing is that kind of bleeds into everything else as well.
Well, think about it. If you don't pay for like an older Hollywood movie, that gives them less incentive to do a restoration on those older Hollywood movies or to make those older Hollywood movies available.
Yeah, like back in the day, there used to be hundreds and hundreds of Asian films released on DVD in North America. Guess what? Now there's none.
Yeah. Like,
companies don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Because people found other avenues to download them, and so, you know, the new Takashi Miike film usually doesn't make it to Blu-ray anymore.
Yeah. But hey, listen, if you want to illegally download something, I'm not your priest.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't need permission from us. Like, yeah. I feel like... The letter continues, I was also wondering, you guys being Canada natives and all, if you guys know of the small group of cinephiles filmmakers that have emerged in the past couple of years from the country. I'm talking specifically about movies like 8888, from Isaiah Medna or Hit to Pass from Kurt Walker. I guess there's a pretty good chance you might even know these people. I asked because I recently watched Hit to Pass and was really impressed. Thanks for your conversations. And this letter is from Tommy Scarpinato.
Well, I've heard of those films, but I haven't seen them.
I have not seen them either.
There are certain...
But Will has his pulse to the experimental art film scene in Toronto.
I came up... There are some... we've talked about Kazak Radwanski's movies like Tower and what the hell's the other one called?
How Heavy This Hammer.
Or there's the guy Matt Johnson who did The Dirties and Operation Avalanche.
And he did Nirvana, the band, The Show, which is currently playing on Vice TV.
I saw one this year that I liked called Never Eat Alone by a director named Sofia Coppola. I might be pronouncing her name wrong. It's sort of derivative of Chantal Akerman, but there are worse people to be derivative of. And I liked it very much. There are interesting things happening in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Teddy Bomb.
Impossible
Horror.
Available on Blu-ray, I heard.
At teddybomb.com. The only thing missing is a Will Sloan commentary track on it.
Well, Justin has another movie coming out soon, and perhaps then I'll be invited.
All right. Other than that, we hate to burst your bubble that we're in with all the filmmakers, because obviously we are. We know them all.
Oh, yeah, we're great pals with all of them.
David Cronenberg, call him up on the phone.
Adam Egoyan is just sitting off mic right now. Hey, Adam.
Because we're in the Canadian Film Institute right now, recording these podcasts.
I think it's wrong for critics like us to spend time being friends with filmmakers. I think it would make us less objective.
All right, so that's it for this episode. You can send us any questions or comments at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to go and rate and review us on iTunes. And if you like us and want to hear more of us every week, you can check us out on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get an extra episode of the Important Cinema Club every week. This week, it's the 20th anniversary of Batman and Robin, so me and Will talked about it for 20 minutes. So please check that out. Thanks for listening.
Until next week, the balcony is closed.
Please, I'm not going to let you say that anymore. I had the great pleasure of showing a film directed by Albert Pyun on the big screen at the Royal Cinema this week through the series I co-host, Laser Blast Film Society. We showed Nemesis, which, if you haven't heard about it, is like a cyberpunk John Woo-ish spaghetti western that was made in the early 90s and was most famous as a direct-to-video action series.
I mean, more than anything, it's a Terminator ripoff.
A little bit, yeah, because it's about cyborgs.
Yeah.
And this is a film that was never meant to be shown big widescreen, but wow, was it nice on the big screen.
You had a 35mm print of Albert Pyun's Nemesis.
Albert Pyun, if you don't know, is often called the Ed Wood of the modern day, like the 90s. He is a director that people just love to shit on. He made the original Captain America, where it was played by J.D. Salinger's son,
yes,
who most famously in the film feigned being sick. So the driver of the car he was in would get out so he could then run back and steal the car and drive away.
Classic.
He also made films like Sword and the Sorcerer, Brain Smasher, A Love Story.
Ticker with the unbeatable duo of Tom Sizemore and Steven Seagal.
And Dennis Hopper.
God.
Well, yeah, but Nemesis is Albert Pyun at probably his most purest form, where he actually has a little bit of money to play with, and it shows on screen.
It was visually beautiful. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's shot all in Hawaii, and Nemesis is just golden in the way, like, everything is golden. And, like, the opening action scene, which takes place in this insane, like, broken down, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, well, our friend Peter Kapowski was saying after the screening how sad it is that the shitty VOD movies today, they're not as idiosyncratic.
Yeah, like, Albert Pyun, whether you like it or not, has a vision that he wants to put up on screen.
Yeah.
While people like the ones making the Asylum blockbusters have nothing to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Albert Pyun's vision is like
cyborgs and Blade Runner ripoffs.
It's like filched from a bunch of other people.
Yeah,
but there is a certain passion in his work.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I was moved to learn from your intro that Albert Pyun is currently suffering from multiple sclerosis, and yet even so is still he has 4 movies in development on IMDb.
Yeah, he's a filmmaker that, I mean, I'd love to do an Important Cinema Club episode down the line because I think there's a lot to explore there. But he started independently, and he's been making films like nonstop since the like mid 80s. And he's a filmmaker that's always experimenting. While he's making films like Nemesis, which are just cyborg blowing their heads off, he also made a movie where he had enough money left over that he went and shot another picture in 2 days.
Wow.
That's like a Jess Franco move right there called Deceit.
What a great man.
And it's that kind of like rock and roll attitude, as he actually described his own filmmaking style, that has always attracted me to him.
Hey, what movie are you showing at the Royal next month?
We're showing No Retreat, No Surrender 3, Blood Brothers, again on 35 millimeter.
That's insane.
Yeah, like, these films were never meant to be shown this way.
Toronto has a bounty of riches. At the University of Toronto, Justin and Peter have stumbled on this 35 millimeter collection they have because various distributors that went out of business would just dump their archives on U of T. So they have all these 35 millimeter prints of Albert Pyun movies
that have never played anywhere.
that will never play in a class.
No, because why would they show
Why
it?
would they?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when I teach action cinema at the University of Toronto, I'll be screening the Albert Pyun 35 millimeter print of Nemesis.
Yeah, like 8 weeks are Albert Pyun, and the other 8 weeks are
John Woo.
John Woo.
Yeah, that's right.
The 2 greatest action filmmakers.
Pyun and Woo together at last.